to the lightning round.
Welcome.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Dave Kershner Lightning Round podcast. I am your host. We are in episode 70 and week 63 of pick a derogatory term and you can apply it to this stolen, illegitimate moron and his entire administration. 63 weeks of this idiot, and he destroyed the country in nearly half that time. So, hey, kudos to him! Now that they realize they are in some dire straits for the midterms, who do they trot out there? Well, it's the original country wrecker, Barry Obama. But that's not why we're here. This is the preparedness show. We're in week 46 of the we're in the 46th quadrennial Hunger Games. We're in week 63 of Ding Dong. This is episode 70. I got a couple things. I was watching the news the other night, and the local weatherman, he brought up that yesterday, April 5th, was the 207th anniversary of the eruption of Mount Tambora over in Indonesia on the Sumbawa Island. And that kind of piqued my curiosity because he said something else, which is what really kind of caught my attention, which was in the summer of 1816. So this eruption happened in April of 1815. That eruption was more powerful than Krakatoa. It was 10 times more powerful than Krakatoa. It was magnitudes more powerful than Mount St. Helens. Mount Vesuvius is incredibly famous simply for killing as many people as it did. But in terms of raw power, it wasn't all that powerful. So it's not even in the top 15. But Mount Tambora is the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history. So they say. But what the local meteorologist said that caught my attention was that in 1816, a year after the eruption, is when the effects of the eruption were felt in North America and in Europe, because it put 31 cubic miles of ash and debris and crap into the atmosphere. And they often refer to the summer of 1816 as the year without a summer. And that got me to thinking, could I, if something like that were to happen today, could I feed my family? Could you? What would need to go into that preparedness planning? And so it got me to thinking, and it actually made me go over and get my little clipboard with my inventory of my inventory of everything, and I went over to the pages that had all of my gardening materials. Now, if you have an eruption like that, the reason they called it the year without a summer is because there was so much crap in the atmosphere that it literally dropped the temperature in North America and in Western Europe 5 degrees. Fahrenheit, to the point where they had a frost every month in 2016. They had snow in New England in July. Crop failure was a common occurrence, and the weather sucked so bad, the sun never came out. People were content to just stay inside by the fire. It was the only place that you could find comfort. I read, and in preparation for this, I read up on it, and some of the historical accounts out of New England, they said that when the corn was supposed to start milking, it was frozen. A lot of the grain crops failed. Now think what was going on in 1816. So we were doing westward expansion, but the West wasn't tied to the bulk of the population via train yet. So the breadbasket that was or is the Midwest, where a lot of our grains are grown now, didn't really exist. And even if it did, there was no way to get the material back to the East Coast. So I went through my inventory, and a lot of thoughts were going through my mind. I was like, do I have warming mats to start seeds? I have those. I have 8 ballasts that used to be in my garage, used to be in my storage room, but I have a box that has extra bulbs, has grow lights in there, different types of the long tubes for the the fluorescent ballast. These are 3 foot long. I have a grow light stand. I broke it down. I didn't put it back up yet. I need to, because I need to actually start my seeds. I have a kind of like a grow light cabinet type of thing, where I can hang the ballasts in there, and I've got 3 or 4 shelves that I can start seed trays on. I only made it wide enough to hold 1 seed tray. I didn't buy one of these big, robust things. We kind of missed the window for our seed starting because my wife was actually out of the country during the spring break. And typically what we do is we go to her high school, because the high school has a large metal kind of commercial grow light stand that they use, and to teach the kids about plants and about germination and seeds, and they do different experiments to see which ones are which ones require the most water, which ones require the most sunlight, which ones don't require much water, and so on and so forth. But it got me to thinking that with this 206th anniversary of the year without a summer, could you endure that? Because the way that I wrote preparing to prepare, that would most definitely fall into what's the word? Major. I couldn't think of the word major. So I have minor, moderate, and major disruptions. And the way I've defined them based on duration. So a minor is a week or less, a moderate is a week to a month, and a major is a month or longer. So this, obviously, it's more than a month. It's the entire summer. It's the bulk of 1816. So that would be a major disruption. Could you survive that? Now, the weather outside is horrible. The temperature's dropped. The sun's not coming out because there's a perpetual fog and haze over everything. So planting outside is generally not going to work if you happen to have been in the area most affected, which is the Atlantic seaboard, New England area, and Western Europe. And when those crops failed, they didn't have electricity, obviously. There were so many deaths from starvation. There were diseases that ran rampant because people's health was affected. A lot of people died 15 months after the event actually happened. So that kind of brought me to this point. Do you have what you need to survive a scenario like that? And a lot of people will say, well, I'm prepared for a nuclear winter. it's in the same vein, but if you, I'm working on the premise that a like for like comparison. There's a volcanic eruption in Indonesia, okay, which means society has not broken down. I still have all of my utilities, gas, water, electricity. But in that scenario, your solar panels aren't going to work. So what do? You know, do the winds, are they stable enough for you to run some kind of windmill? There's an idea. Battery backups would be helpful. Not that they'd be fed from the solar panels, but if something were to happen, you can pre-charge the batteries from the grid. Hopefully the grid comes back up within 3 days, because then you're back to zero. You've got no battery. So do you have the materials, the pots, the dirt, the seeds available to you in your stores? And by stores, I mean your stores, like what you've got saved up in your preparedness planning. Do you have what you need to be able to grow food indoors for maybe 6 months to a year? Could you do it? It would be tough for me, but I could do it. It would not be something I'd want to do, because we'd be looking at some wholesale changes in some of the rooms in this house that because I have some heat lamps, I've got the grow lights, so I could turn a room into a greenhouse of sorts. But could you do the same? And that's my question to you today. Can you look at your inventory and solve that problem if we had another Mount Tambora style eruption? And that actually reminded me, I put a little blurb in my book, in chapter 1, regarding people that were fearful of the Yellowstone caldera. And I'll just read it to you because I can. It's my podcast. So there you go. And while we're here, if the Yellowstone caldera is your biggest concern, you needn't bother. This is a catastrophic disruptor, also known as a global killer. The ash cloud, in theory, would wrap our planet like a suffocating blanket and kill all plant life in less than a year. That's assuming you survived the earthquakes that would accompany the explosion. Now, assuming you survived all of that, you would most likely be living like a mole, underground. So now, you need to know how to grow food indoors, but you have a bigger problem. Where will you get the water you need for your plants? If there's widespread devastation, you most likely don't have power too, because the ash cloud would severely reduce or more likely eliminate the efficiency of solar panels. So how are your grow lights going to provide the necessary light for the plants when you can't recharge your battery banks? And if you did actually go outside, the air would be so ash-laden that breathing it is now a problem without a respirator. Should you decide to trek outside in search of water after your stored water supply runs out, assuming you have stored water, despite the potential for respiratory distress, all you're likely to find is that the previously available water sources are now under multiple feet of ash. So there you go. I even addressed it in my book. So I just thought that was an interesting thought experiment. And the next one deals with preparedness as well. My wife and daughter went to Florida last weekend to do an official campus visit of a flight school down there. And it was kind of last minute. We got taken to the cleaners on airfare costs. We wound up on a budget airline. And for the sake of those of you that are contemplating taking your kids next year or even still this year on campus visits further away from home and you're planning on flying, I would not recommend Spirit Airlines. This is my point. My wife had her and her daughter, had her and my daughter. Their flight to Orlando was canceled, and they booked them on a 5:30 a.m. flight on Saturday morning. But shortly after the flight got canceled, my wife found some one-way airfare from Columbus down to Daytona. So they got on that plane. So I called Spirit Airlines and I said, no, they're not going to be on the Saturday morning flight, but we need to keep the Sunday evening flight. And they said, okay, great. Because if she'd have no-showed the Saturday morning flight, they would have automatically canceled the return flight on Sunday. So I'm glad I called. So they did the campus visit. They went to the beach and just kind of generally explored the area around campus after the tour. And then they got in the rental car and they drove back to Orlando because that's where she was originally flying into and out of. As she's pulling into the car rental agency and I'm telling her, look, there's a problem in Orlando. They're canceling flights left and right. Don't pull into the car rental return lot. Unfortunately, she pulled in as I was saying it. And now she's stuck, right? She can't get the car back because now she's got to turn it in. Well, what happened over the weekend, they blamed on several things, never actually owning up to the fact that their COVID policies caused them to have a pilot shortage and a flight attendant shortage. They blamed it on overcrowded air traffic patterns. They blamed it on weather, and they blamed it on technology glitches in their respective systems. Over 12,000 flights into and out of Orlando were delayed or canceled outright. I'm trying to work the computer while she's on the phone with me, and she's like, well, just give me a rental car and I'll drive home. And I literally looked. There were no rental cars available until Thursday if you were trying to get out of Orlando. There were no rental cars till Tuesday. There were no flights until Thursday. So she's stuck until at least Tuesday. And I thought, well, what about other cities nearby? So I looked and Tampa. I looked at Tampa and I got her a one-way car rental from Tampa back to Columbus. It was $130. To get a car rental one way out of Orlando International Airport, they were price gouging. They were charging $615. Same distance, same company. The difference was I got it from a place that was not an airport. I found a budget rental car agency that wasn't affiliated with the airport. As she's talking to me on the phone, a gentleman overhears her and waits for her to get off the phone and says, oh, were you on the Detroit flight? Because he and his wife and son were flying to Detroit. They took the son to Disney World. Don't get me started on Disney World. We'll cover that shit on Saturday. But she says, no, I was on the Columbus flight. And he said, well, I guess I got lucky. I think I got the last one-way car rental out of Orlando. I'm about to go up here and pick it up. And my wife, she's got a boldness streak in her that I sometimes wish she didn't have, but in this particular instance, she's trying to solve the problem. She's working the equation. And she says to this man who she has just met and had a 30-second conversation, Well, how about we split the cost of the car rental? And my daughter and I will just ride with you and your wife and son. To which he says, let me talk to my wife. The wife comes over, the two wives talk, and it is agreed that they are going to share the car. So now they have 3 drivers. It is 6 p.m. on Sunday night. And they are driving back from Orlando. I picked them up Monday morning on the other side of Dayton, which is about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes away from me. I picked them up at about 10 a.m. And they had literally just, everybody drove for 2-3 hours, and then they rotated. Could you have gotten to your family if they were stranded in a far off place? Now, mind you, rule of law still exists. Society hasn't broken down. It took a great deal of faith and prayer. It was a very stressful weekend for me, and I wasn't even on the trip because I had been trying to solve and put out fires for her and my daughter Friday. Saturday was shot in the ass. I drove to watch my daughter go play lacrosse. And then I came home. I went to a Columbus Crew game. I mean, I was gone from sunup to sundown on Saturday. And I got very little rest on Friday because now I've got my wife flying into, her whole flight thing is going crazy. She's trying to stay on hold. Her phone's dying. It was almost like a perfect storm of shit going wrong. But I was able to test some of my preparedness planning and my wife's ability to deal with stress. She never broke down. She didn't have any, woes me, crying fits or anything like that. But it allowed me to think about, and this whole show really is about thought exercises. If this, then that, okay? If this, then how do I solve that? Working the problem, doing the calculus, if you will. Say my wife and daughter were stranded in Orlando. How would I get to them? Was there a plan in place? And in this instance, there was no plan in place. However, there is one now. Anywhere in the Southeast, I know that I can call on 2 people that would go and collect my wife and daughter. One is based in Atlanta, and the other is based in North Carolina. So if my wife and daughter are stranded, or daughters are stranded anywhere in the Southeast, we got them covered. We can handle that. But anything other than that, we have to rework the problem. We have to solve other problems. And this is what I was getting at and trying to explain in Preparing to Prepare in Chapter 2, specifically pre-disruption planning. You have your everyday needs and things like that. But I put a list in there on page 7, which talks about workplace emergencies, school emergencies, evacuation routes, family emergency planning. This weekend and the Mount Tambora, to a lesser extent, anniversary, but this weekend in particular showed me that there are holes in my preparedness planning. Because I always assumed that I would be with them. And then we would be able to address the problems collectively based off of the skills that I've acquired that I would be able to provide food and shelter and protect them, and I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't with them. So it's a lot of things. Okay, it's more than just the skill sets that you pick up as a husband and a father or a brother. You need to be making sure that you are doing these knowledge transfers and you're doing training to the point where you take your information in your knowledge base and you're able to transfer it to other people in your group, in your family. That's why it's important to learn as much as you can and build a really wide knowledge base. Not just for you, but for your group, for your family. But another element to that is being able to transfer that knowledge and teach someone else. Can you do that? And in this particular instance, I had done that. Okay? My wife and daughter knew exactly what they needed to do. They knew that they could call on the person, the family in Atlanta, and say, hey, we're stuck. Can you come get us in Orlando? And then Dave is going to come down and meet us at your house in Atlanta. Or can you come get us and we can get a rental car in Atlanta? Because there were literally no rental cars available in the city of Orlando. Everybody knew about the flight problems, the 12,000 flights over Saturday and Sunday that had been canceled or had been delayed and delayed and delayed. And everybody was stuck at the airport. You want to know what will happen in our society when things start breaking down and people are collected in mass in specific locations like an airport. Okay? By all accounts, the people stuck in Orlando were very calm. They were very collected. They knew that they were going to get out of there eventually in some way, shape, or form. It might take a day or two. But what happens if that's not the scenario? If they're stuck there because of a terrorist attack, they're stuck there because of a natural disaster, they're stuck there because somebody did something to somebody and society is starting to break down. Pick a scenario that leads to societal collapse, and you have tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people stranded in one location in an airport, say LAX, LaGuardia, JFK, O'Hare. You know, these big airports. What's going to happen if you're stuck in that? Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I wouldn't be stuck there very long because I got 2 feet and I can recognize situations. But those scenarios were not at play on Sunday in Orlando. But I mean, I was literally in the car. I was on my way to go get them. And then she told me that she had secured a ride. I mean, I was looking at U-Hauls. You know, go rent a one-way U-Haul, a little, you know, a truck or a little 10-foot cargo van, something that was not going to be, you know, I don't need a 24-footer. I can get the little 10-footer. But even that, based on mileage, was going to be $500-600. So, I mean, we went through a lot of steps and worked a lot of different variations of the same problem trying to get a better result, which was them back in Columbus in the shortest amount of time possible. We got lucky. But it did show me that I need to look harder at my preparedness planning when there is a large amount of distance between me and one of my family members. And that's the lesson for today. What are you doing in terms of preparedness planning when your family is scattered? That's the thought exercise. All right? That's episode 70. Thank you for tuning in. I've been looking because I'm curious and I like statistics. You guys, you listeners, you guys are some pretty good fans. Because I can go into the statistics for the Podbean where we upload the episodes, and I can go see, what were the most popular episodes. It's kind of like a top 10. And the Lightning Round podcast is consistently ranking with 4 or 5 of episodes in the top 10, and it's a month-long view. So it tells me how many people have downloaded this or this episode or that episode. And obviously when you read the text that goes along with the episode, you can say, "Oh, I don't really want to listen to that one today." Or you can say, "Oh, that's a topic I really don't want to hear about. I already did that," or whatever. So a lot of it has to do with what I type to kind of pique your curiosity to listen to it. But all in all, you guys are great, because not only you're buying books, which is awesome, you're taking me up on my free offers for freebie codes for the audio format of the fiction series. The narrator, I just sent him an email. I gave him some time to cool off. I sent him an email, and he's recording. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of communication between the two of us regarding edits, particularly if the edits are the result of a missed word or something in my manuscript. So I think he's going to be reluctant to do anything other than addressing anything that I find as an error in the audio, meaning, that was 2 sentences, not 1. I'd like a break there, because when you read it all as 1 sentence, it doesn't make any sense, or whatever, or I don't know. But he's progressing forward, so that's good. But yeah, the freebie codes are still there. With ACX, when I upload a book or whatever, they give me so many freebie codes for each book. So I still have a few left. If you're interested, shoot me an email at djkpublishinghouse@gmail.com, and I'll get you your freebie codes. What else? Was there something else? Nope. That's it. All right, folks. Have a good week, and we'll talk again on the weekend, and we'll review this idiot in chief. Oh, goodness. What a moron. All right. Stay safe, stay warm, keep your head on a swivel. Be good. I'm out.
Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor.